And now, as we know that glaucoma diagnostic is incomplete without a very important evaluation, which is gonioscopy or the angle evaluation. And for that, we have a wonderful speaker today who has done his post-graduation and senior residency from world-renowned Center AIMS, New Delhi. And today he is the owner and director of Max Vision Eye Center at Jaipur. We welcome Dr. Ankur Sinha for his talk on gonioscopy.
Uh, Thank you, Shalini. Thank you, GSI, for giving me this opportunity. Good morning, Harsh sir. I've seen you now.
Yeah. Good morning, sir. Yeah. Welcome.
So I'll be starting my talk on gonioscopy. So first we talk about the principle of gonioscopy, that why the angles are not visible. It is because of the total internal reflection of light. Now what happens is that the light, when it emanates from the angles, from the anterior surface of cornea, it is reflected back into the antechamber. So we are not able to see the angles by naked eyes. So what we can do is we can place this gonio lens, which is a direct gonioscope, and then we can see the reflected ray of light through this gonio lens, and then we can view the angles. The other option which is commonly used is this gonio prism, where the light travels through the antechamber, through the cornea, and then the reflected light from the mirror is seen by us from the gonio prisms. Now, direct gonioscopy involves instruments like gonio lenses and gonioscope. So gonioscope is actually a handheld biomicroscope required for direct gonioscopy. Now, there are various types of gonio lenses which can be used. Now, this is the technique where we place, we put the patient under topical anesthesia in the supine position, put the gonio lens with coupling solution over the patient's eyes, and through the light source, through a handheld biomicroscope, we have direct visualization of angles. Now, this is a Swan-Jacob lens which can be used under the microscope, and it can be used even for surgeries. Now, indirect gonioscopy, which we commonly do, requires a gonio prism and a slit lamp, and then where there are various types of gonio prisms, one has to choose one from it. Now, this is the technique of application of gonio prism. So this is the 4-mirror gonioscope which we are applying on the subject's eye. So we ask the patient to open the eye wide, and then we gently press the cornea, gently put the gonio prism onto the cornea. And this is the indirect Goldman 2-mirror, where we put the coupling solution, ask the patient to look down, and then we gently put the gonio prism into the patient's eye, and then we straighten the gonio lens so that we can see the angles in the straight in situ positions. In both the things, we have to be very, very gentle in both the gonioscopies. Now, this is what I have. I've been using Goldman 2-mirror, Zeiss 4-mirror, rich panoramic surgical gonioscopic lens, and a Swan-Jacob lens. Now, what do we see inside the angles? So we look for Schwalbe's line, anterior non-pigmented trabecular meshwork, posterior pigmented trabecular meshwork, which is the functional part of the trabecular meshwork, the scleral spur, the ciliary body band, and the root of iris. So this is what is seen from anterior to posterior. Now, this is how a gonioscopic picture looks like. So this white line here is the Schwalbe's line. Just beyond that is the non-pigmented part of the trabecular meshwork, which is also white. And then we have this pigmented brownish trabecular meshwork. Then we again have a white band, which is scleral spur, and then we have this grayish area, which is called a ciliary body band. So this is how the fundus gonioscopic picture looks like through the gonioscope. Now, how we identify the scleral spur? So first we have to identify the corneal wedge. So there is a reflection from the anterior and the posterior surface of cornea, and then they meet together. The place where they meet together is the Schwalbe's line. So here we can see this corneal wedge, and the place where they meet together is the Schwalbe's line. Now, in this picture, we can see that the corneal wedge is seen, but we cannot see the area where these two rays are meeting together. So this is actually a closed angles, and this should be labeled as angle closure. In systemic gonioscopic examination, we should look at the pupillary margin, iris and the lens surface, zonules, ciliary body, antechamberal structures, angle appearance after dynamic or the manipulation gonioscopies, or indentation gonioscopy, pharmacological effects, iris insertion site, iris configuration, width of angle recess, angle pigmentation, iris processes, iris and the angle vessels, and angle abnormalities. So there's a lot of things to be looked into when we are doing gonioscopy in any of the patient. Now, this is what do we look for? So this is the application of a 2-mirror. So 2-mirror lens has been applied, and we are looking into the gonioscope. So this is the corneal wedge I was talking about. So we can, now this is very finely focused, and this is the Schwalbe's line which we see. So there's slight pigmentation anterior to the Schwalbe's line, which should not be confused with the posterior pigmented part of trabecular meshwork. So here we can see, now we widen the beam and we identify that there is slight pigmentation anterior to the Schwalbe's line. Now this is the application of a 4 mirror. So once you press it, once you put the gonio prism, there can be slight compression of the cornea. So we try and avoid that, and there should be frequent air exchanges as they are happening here. And there should not be any corneal folds in situ gonioscopy. And then we again identify the corneal wedge. Then we again magnify and identify the various corneal structures. So this is, we are trying to apply the gonio prism, trying to stabilize it because it's a small lens. Sometimes it is difficult to stabilize. Then we narrow down our slit beam, and then we identify the structures. And then we again widen the beam. This is, we're trying to identify and this is the widening of the slit lamp beam, and we can see almost all of the angle structures here. Now the question is why there are so many types of gonio prisms. The answer lies in the tree and the hill hypothesis. So consider that the angles are the tree and the observer is here, and this is the hill, or which are the iris. So in the Westerners, when the iris is flat, we can clearly see the footnotes or foot of the tree, which is the angle structure. So we can easily see the angles when the iris is flat or concave. But what happens in Indian eyes is we have a lot of square iris configuration. So it becomes difficult to see the angles in these patients. So either we have to move forwards, climb up the hill, or go higher up. Then only we can see the angles. So there are a lot of gonioscopes to avoid these kind of problems in various kinds of iris. Now this is a specifications of Goldman single mirror, the specifications of Goldman 3 mirror, and then we have the specifications of Zeiss 4 mirror. They can all be found on the book, and I won't go into the detail. So this is the comparison of single mirror, 3 mirror, and Zeiss 4 mirror, which is commonly used for gonioscopy. So here we note that the mirror height is maximum Goldman single mirror. Also, distance from the central cornea is minimum for Goldman single mirror. So this can be slight beneficial in eyes with convex iris configuration, where we can look deep into the angles. But Zeiss 4 mirror has a smaller diameter, smaller contact area, and we can actually do a good indentation gonioscopy with Zeiss 4 mirror. And also the center height is not so away as in the Goldman 3 mirror, so it can help us look into the deeper angle structures. Now this is the comparison between the Goldman and the Zeiss 4 mirror. The Goldman mirror does not require coupling solution. It produces a suction effect, so sometimes it can cause even abrasion. With rotation, we can have a continuous view of angles. It has a larger diameter, small radius of curvature, so it minimizes chances of inadvertent indentation. But yes, we can press it, and then this can, because of the pressure, we can have falsely closing angles because of the Goldman single mirror. Zeiss 4 mirror does not need any coupling solution, so there is no suction effect. And in fact, we have difficulty in stabilizing the lenses sometimes. With slight rotation, say about 8 degrees, we can see almost whole of the angles. It has a small diameter and can be moved over the cornea. It can be tilted without altering the patient's gaze. Now then we have this dynamic gonioscopy, which involves manipulation and indentation. So what we do in manipulation is we tilt or slide the lens towards the angles which we are trying to view. So mirror height in case of Goldman is smaller, so we can have a closer look, and we can do a good manipulation gonioscopy here. Try to avoid indentation with Zeiss and compression with Goldman's here. Now with tilt, what happens, there is some astigmatism comes into play, which causes shortened view of the trabecular meshwork. Indentation gonioscopy is required to differentiate between synachial and appositional closure. It may be difficult in very high IOP. So what we do is we gently press the cornea posteriorly and look for opening of the angles. So when we do this, there are some sort of corneal folds, and they can be reduced by moving the lens towards the angles, which can improve the view. Now this is the gonioscopic picture without indentation, and with indentation we can see there are synechia, but the angles does open up in some part. Then we have various grading systems of gonioscopy like Schees, Schaefer, Spaeth, and the RPC system. Some may go from open to closed angles, but some go from closed to open angles. So what commonly used system is the Spaeth system, where the level of iris insertion is noted in terms of anterior to Schwalbe's line, B as in behind Schwalbe's line, C as in scleral spur, deep in deep angles or ciliary body band, E in the extremely deep angles, and the iris processes in terms of U, V, and W. Then we also note the iris configuration Q as in cure or convex, R as regularly, and S as steep convex or iris configuration. The angular width is also measured in terms of 10, 20, 30, and 40 degrees. And we also note the pigmentation at 12 o'clock as from no visible to dense pigmentation of trabecular meshwork. Now RPC system grades from 0 to 6. depending upon no dipping of light to ciliary body band. But what we have been taught is usually this modified RPC system, where we write the angle structure seen, as in CB when the ciliary body band is seen, SS when the scleral spur is seen, SC when the posterior one-third or the functional part of trabecular meshwork is seen, TM when the middle one-third is seen, SL as Schwalbe's line, D as dipping, and as no dipping of light. And then we add other systems from the Spade system as we have shown there. Then we have this Becker's gonogram to document it. The inner ring is the scleral spur and the outer ring is the Schwalbe's line. Here we document fine gonioscopes in terms of small tent-like structures, or we have this broad-based peripheral antisynechiae, or the quadrants where we want to mention as angle recession, NVI, etc. This is how the documentation of the gonioscopy is done. Like TM is in trabecular meshwork being seen, and SC is the posterior one-third of trabecular meshwork seen. And on manipulation, it opens to CB, that is the ciliary body band, and then we write where whatever we see as iris processes, pass, goniosynechiae, angle recession, NVI, etc. We also take a note of angle recess, iris configuration, and documentation of pigmentation of trabecular meshwork. Take care of life-induced changes, because light causes constriction of pupil and the angles may actually open up. Gonioscopy is not a one-time job. It has to be repeated in almost all glaucoma patients and glaucoma suspects, because open angle patients may develop angle closure. PACG suspects may move on to primary angle closure glaucoma. Diabetics can develop open angle glaucoma or NVI or NVA, and then they move on to neovascular glaucoma. Uveitic glaucoma patients can have broad-based synechia, and they can have this angle closure kind of picture again. So you have to be very gentle with hands. With single mirror, do not put pressure, because it can cause false closure of angles. With 4 mirror, the pressure will cause false opening of the angles. Now, 3 important things to differentiate in gonioscopy is peripheral antisynechiae, prominent iris processes, and goniosynechiae. Now, these are the peripheral antisynechiae where we can see they are very broad-based tent-like structures, which are in fact tenting the iris. They are usually a result of pupillary block. They are tent-like. They may be adhered to any level up to the Schwalbe's line. They are commonly seen in posterior polymorphous dystrophy, neovascular glaucoma, nanophthalmos, post-op shallow ACs, and incarceration of iris. They are more commonly seen superiorly, and they obstruct the view of scleral spur and trabecular meshwork. Prominent iris processes. They are fine, filiform-like structures, thread-like structures arising from the iris, and they are usually non-pigmented in young adults, but as the age advances, they can get pigmented. They are normally found in 35% of patients nasally and inferiorly. Now, goniosynechiae. Goniosynechiae, they are evidence of angle closure. They are very fine thread-like structures. They bridge the angles, and they also tend to tent the iris anteriorly. Now, we'll go to some case-based illustrations. Now, this is a case of 62-year-old female with a moderate hyperopia. She attends the OPD as an attendant, but she has an occasional history of colored halos, headache, for which she is not worried. The vision is absolutely fine, the pressures are okay, but AC is slightly shallow and fundi unremarkable. On gonioscopy, we see that the angles are absolutely closed, but on indentation, they do open up. So this is the manipulation gonioscopy where the angles are opening up. Other eye is showing where goniosynechiae, which is showing in the magnified part in the lower picture. So this signifies that the angles are getting close. So she has been diagnosed as primary angle closure, and YAG-PI is recommended at this stage, because at present only the pupillary block mechanism is working and there is no compromise in the outflow facility. The patient is having good IOP intermittently. So a YAG-PI can go a long way in preserving vision of this patient. A 45-year-old male diagnosed as open angle glaucoma on bimetoprost and timolol. Pressures are 22 and 15, intermittent regards of elevated IOP, and the pressures are maximum recorded pressures are 46 and 38, and there's a definite disc damage in the right eye. And this is the gonioscopic picture where we can see that there are multiple goniosynechiae with open angles. So here the diagnosis is changed to a combined mechanism glaucoma, because both the mechanisms of decreased outflow facility and pupillary block are working. So the patient is advised YAG-PI for the pupillary block and medications for decreased outflow facility. Another case, a 20-year-old male with history of blunt trauma with a cricket ball. Old records do mention of hyphema which cleared on medical treatment. The pressures are 40 with definite disc damage in the right eye. The left eye is okay. And on gonioscopy, we find there's a widened ciliary body band as compared to the other eye. And the patient is diagnosed as angle recession glaucoma. This is another case where we have angle recession, but this is less than 180 degrees, so there's no glaucoma. This is another patient where we can see angle recession and normal angles in the same gonioscopic picture. So this is how the widened ciliary body band can be seen. Another case, a 58-year-old female with diabetic for 20 years. She complains of pain in the right eye with diminution of vision. There is history of recurrent bleed because of PDR, irregular on follow-up. And on examination, the vision is 3/60 and the pressures are 58. We also see a lot of NVI in the right eye, and fundus show bilateral PDR. And what we see on gonioscopy is this thin tuft of vessel which is coming up, and the other picture, which is the inferior one, which is showing you a lot of hemorrhages. So this signifies that still we have open angles and NVA. So probably anti-VEGF with PRP is going to work in these patients. Now we move on to a few other gonioscopic findings. So this is a patient of pigmentary glaucoma where we have this S-shaped iris configuration and a significantly higher pigmentation of trabecular meshwork. So this is also in such patients, we have these Sampao-Lazy's lines, which is anterior to the Schwalbe's line. Some people, especially beginners, can get confused this as pigmented trabecular meshwork. So importance of identifying the Schwalbe's line is always there. Another case of hypotony, post-traumatic hypotony, the cause lies here in the cyclodialysis in the inferior picture. We can see there is iridodialysis, but there is cyclodialysis in the pars plana area, which is the cause of low IOP. Another case where we have again a large iridodialysis with a cyclodialysis cleft causing low IOP in these pictures. A case of developmental glaucoma where we can see iris insertion, especially in this part where the iris is inserted onto the posterior pigmented trabecular meshwork. A case of post-uveitic glaucoma where we can see this blotchy pigmented trabecular meshwork, and even blotchy pigmentation extends anterior to the Schwalbe's line. A case of operated trabeculectomy where we can see this ostium which is open, and if such patients are failing, the cause probably lies in the subconjunctival space. A case of pigmented lesion in the angles, which could be a nevus or in melanoma. A case of drainage implant where we can see the tube which is coming out from the angles and fairly placed. A case of foreign body which is seen in the inferior part of the anti-segment photograph, but once we do the gonioscopy, we can clearly see it is into the angles, and it is in fact perforated the iris and probably going back posteriorly. Faint visualization of lens matter in the inferior part, but once we do a gonioscopy, we can see a large amount of lens chunk lying into the angles. So gonioscopy is a must in management of glaucoma and should not be kind of taken lightly and should not be avoided. Thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you, Dr. Ankur, for a very illustrative presentation. And I would request Dr. Harsh Kumar sir to make some comment about gonioscopy.
I just want to say what a wonderful lecture both of them have. Both Shweta and Ankur, I am really impressed here.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
So well.
Thank you, sir.
Wonderful, and your animations and all fantastic, yaar. Maza aa gaya. So I think he has shown everything so beautifully. Two comments I want to make. One for Shweta's lecture is that very important thing for us is to relax the person before taking the pressure. So many children I get, everybody crying all around and this thing, arey pressure 40 aa gaya, ye ho gaya, wo ho gaya. All you have to do is to just relax that child, and the moment you relax the child, the pressure is 12, 14. So that part is the most critical part, and I teach all the time that it is an art, it is not a science. And same, and for gonioscopy, I would like to definitely say that the most important thing, the first thing I tell all PG is buy a gonioscope. Buy a gonioscope, buy a 90D and buy an indirect. And when you have the free patients, keep practicing on everybody. That's what we were taught in RP Center. You buy them and you practice on them. And once you do 1,000 gonioscopies on all normal people, and suddenly you look at one angle and you said, "Arey yaar, ye normal nahi hai. There is something abnormal about this. And let me have my senior resident is there, so let me go and ask him, what is this?" So that is the way. Do it in each and every person. Don't think it's a cumbersome. I know it's cumbersome, and even sometimes the day I miss doing a gonioscopy, the patient will take out a big chart from his thala and say, "Sir, inhone to bola tha ki angle closure hai." Now you are stuck because I have not done the gonioscopy. I have just seen the disc and everything, and I said everything is normal, which it is not, because if somebody has said you have not done the gonioscopy. So gonioscopy is a part of parcel. Each one of us has to learn and keep doing it. Everyone, that's the trick to learn. And yes, if the people you are going to buy, you have to buy a 4-mirror because it is the easiest to use. And Shalini will agree, and Ankur is also now in practice, that in practice, nothing. The moment you put that dye and that gel, the patient will start, "Arey bhai, main to normal aaya tha, kya kar diya meri aankh ka?" So,
Very true, sir.
so I love this 4 mirror since it has come. It has become, our task is so much easier. Shalini,
Yes, sir.
next time, please. I was Ankur, I was talking to her that I miss so much her hospitality. Last time I came to Kanpur, it was so much fun.
Dr. Madhu ma'am, would you like to comment about gonioscopy?
Ma'am, you're muted.
Mic is muted.
Yeah, Harsh has covered practically everything. But for gonio, I'll say just one more thing, that it's not always angle closure. There may be a pigmentary glaucoma lurking behind. And the course is very, very different. Like with the open angle, it will be behaving like an angle closure. So gonioscopy is something which is, I think, must for everybody who comes to your clinic. Even sometimes the pressures are not high. And you do a gonioscopy and in this one, Shweta's thinks that pressure is really not to be high in every patient, but gonioscopy and whatever is coming next to it will actually diagnose glaucoma.
Yeah, that's true, ma'am.
Very true. Thank you so much, ma'am.